Dechaert in 2006 or late 2005 made a strategic decision to set up an Islamic finance practice, and they made that decision to go for it in a big way at that time. I joined the London office and drove the business in London. Since that time, we have won a number of awards as one of the leading Islamic finance practices. We won the Euromoney Award, the Sheikh Maktoum Award, personal accolades, Deal of the Year last year for a Sukuk transaction out of Bahrain, and the practice has gone from strength to strength from that time. I think there was a vision at the time, and seeing that prices of oil are starting to go up. There's a lot of wealth in the Middle East. The Middle East is a growing area. There's a lot of projects, a lot of development, and obviously Islamic finance is an area which is booming, has a lot of promise. It's a nascent industry. It's good to get into an industry when it's just starting to form and get life effectively. And the decision was to have a global Islamic finance practice with a link into the United States. And I think it was a very good decision for the firm, and has given the firm real presence and a real name amongst Islamic financial institutions. You have to be innovative. You need to think outside of the box. There are a lot of issues that you have to work around, and you have to structure them. And not only from a Sharia perspective, but you're always challenging yourself from a legal perspective and a tax perspective. I mean, a lot of these structures are very complicated and have a lot of moving parts. So I find that extremely challenging. The practice is very much focused on developing products that the investment banks are looking to develop, and pretty much what we do is more focused on the higher end, more complicated, difficult transactions where people are trying to take Islamic finance into new areas. I mean, traditionally Islamic finance was an area that developed out of asset finance and real estate finance. Now we're seeing much more sophisticated products coming out, and that's being driven by the investment banks. The way it usually works is that our clients would come to us and say, we want to achieve, or we want to develop a product that does this. They have some ideas themselves. We sit down together and look at it, and we've got a very thorough understanding of what the scholars will accept in the market and what's acceptable, and how the products that they have accepted recently would be viewed for that product. We would then work with them and design the product. And normally what we do is we break the transaction up into two phases. If it's a very complicated, large transaction, we have a phase one, which is effectively structuring, and then a phase two, which is implementation. And during phase one, we would sort of sit there, design the structure, look at it from a legal point of view, taxation point of view, regulatory point of view, and then work with the scholars involved with that bank, ensuring that what's actually being put together is acceptable to them as a structure. Once the structure has been approved with all those aspects being ticked off, you go into the implementation phase if it makes sense for the client to implement it. During implementation, of course, you have the legal contracts, the documentation, and it's an ongoing process of working with the Sharia coordination teams and the Sharia scholars in making sure that the actual product is acceptable to them. And then you have closing, and near closing, of course, the final form of the documentation will have to be approved by the Sharia scholars on the transaction. A lot of the one-off Sukuk transactions are one-off transactions, and there could be a lead time of 3-4 months from when you start on something to when you get it to market. The beauty of having a program, and this is also the case in the conventional market, is that once you have the program platform in place, you could effectively go to market very quickly. You don't have to redesign those documents and draft and implement the whole issuing mechanisms. You just have certain mechanisms under that program that you tap and you issue very quickly in the market. If we're looking at transactions in the Middle East region, the tax regime is more friendly there, obviously, and it hasn't been a huge difficulty. But I think Islamic finance now is spreading. The wealth in the Middle East has increased so much that people are looking at tapping that market for borrowing money, for investment. And a big part of that market, obviously, I think estimates are about 500 billion, is Sharia compliant investment money. And obviously, I think the UK government has had the foresight and the vision to create a regime here, or move towards creating a regime where the transactions could be done efficiently and allow banks and institutions to work with each other to implement these transactions. And I think it's extremely important. And I think it gives London a lead, basically, in Europe. And certainly as a global financial centre, it definitely gives London a lead.